Alright guys, hope you're having a good day so far. Today's lesson is going to be about verbs, the second part of speech we're going to learn about after nouns. But it's probably the most important part of speech because it's the one that's in every single complete sentence that you see. Alright, so verbs are action words, but they're also words that show a state of being, and we're going to talk about that in a second. The easiest way to think of verbs right now is that they're actions. They're things you do. You jump, you run, you think, you breathe. Things you do. Pretty easy, right? The other way verbs can be seen are states of being. Am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been, so on and so forth. But this right down here at the bottom is important. Every complete sentence has a verb. You cannot make a sentence without a verb. You can't do it. If you do, it's not a complete sentence. So just keep that in mind. That's why it's so important, because every sentence has a verb. Alright, action verbs have tenses. This tells you as a reader whether something's happening in the past, happening right now in the present, or happening in the future. If it's past tense, it means it already happened. Talked. See, there's an ed at the end of that. Present tense means it's currently happening. Just the word talk is present tense, but we'll talk about that in a second. If it's future tense, it means it's going to happen sometime in the future, whether it's 10 minutes from now or 10 years from now. Will talk would be future tense. So past, present, future are the three tenses we need to know. Alright, so a second ago we talked about present tense. Usually we don't have a present tense verb that doesn't end in ing. Now we can, but usually we have ing at the end. Because usually when something's happening in the present tense, we're showing the reader that it's still taking place at the same moment. So here are three verbs: walk, eat, sleep. Those are three things you do. You would probably have sleeping, eating, and walking in your sentence. Okay? That shows it's an action that's still taking place. Now, they're going to be paired usually with a helping verb. That helping verb is going to show whether that is happening in the past, present, or future. So, I was walking. That means at some point in the past, I was doing that action. I is eating is not obviously one, but you could have I will be eating, okay? Or I am sleeping. That means I'm doing it right now. I will be eating means some point in the future I will be taking part in that action. I was walking means in the past at some point I was walking. So if you put that in a sentence, I was walking. Okay, that means some point in the past I was taking part in that action. So a lot of times when we see verbs, they have ing, but they're almost always going to have that helping verb in front of it. Alright, the next thing we got to know about verbs is that some of them can be irregular. Just like we had irregular nouns that don't follow the rules, we have irregular verbs. An irregular verb is one that you don't add ed to the end to make it past tense. So let's think of these two verbs: make and take. Those are verbs, those are things you can do. You can take something, you can make something. To make them past tense, you don't say taked and maked. That's not correct. Instead of maked, you would say made. Instead of taked, you would say took. I took it, not I taked it. Okay? So again, just like the nouns, there's no set rules for regular verbs. You just gotta learn them. Okay, so we talked about how verbs can be action verbs. Verbs can also be states of being, or helping verbs they're called. These verbs don't really have a meaning by themselves, but they're there to help out other words in the sentence, usually other verbs. So let's take this very short sentence, he run. You should be saying to yourself, Mr. Hayden, that's not a sentence. You're right, it's not. It needs help to become a whole sentence. That's why they're called helping verbs. So you could have a sentence, he can run. He did run. He will run. Will, did, and can are all helping verbs. They're helping that main verb, run, do its job. Now, usually they help out by showing when this took place. He will run. That means he's going to do it sometime in the future. He did run. That means he did it sometime in the past. He can run. That means it's just possible to happen. So, luckily, there's not a ton of helping verbs. It's actually a pretty short list. And here's the list. These are the state of being verbs, and they're kind of broken up into categories. Am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been. Those kind of all to go together. Have, has, and had. Shall and will. Do, does, and did. May, must, and might. Can, could, would, should. Those are the state of being verbs. Those are helping verbs. You're never going to see these on their own. Okay, sometimes you might see them on your own. But you're never going to see them on their own without another verb being implied in the sentence. Let me give you an example. Right here, I am. Something we say a lot of the times. I am. I am. Okay? I am by itself, not a complete sentence. Because you're implying something. I am what? I am ready to go. I am eating breakfast. I am whatever you're saying, okay? So am is there by itself, but something else is implied. Just like if I ask you a question, you say, I will. Like, let's say we're in class. And I say, will you go run this errand for me? You say, I will. What you're really saying is, I will go run this errand for you. The rest of that sentence is left off. So I will by itself, technically not a sentence because there's something else there. Same thing if you said I can. How many of you can identify what a verb is? I can, I can. What you're really saying is I can identify what a verb is. So you might want to pause this for a second and maybe write these down. Might not be a bad idea. But these are the state of being verbs. You never see them by themselves. They're helpers. Now, I hate to break it to you, but I said earlier verbs have 3 tenses. They really have 5. Actually, 6. That's a typo. Verbs have 6 tenses. Simple present, present perfect. Simple past, past perfect. Future, future perfect. Is that kind of confusing? Yeah. Luckily for you, we're not going to worry about them this year. There's supposed to be a big smiley. There's a smiley face. Don't worry about them right now. You will learn about those in the future. Some of you are probably ready to learn about them now, but we're not ready for that yet. So don't worry about past perfect, present perfect, future perfect, all that stuff. But just realize that there's more. All right, time for you to do some practice. So I've given you 6 words on here. I've given you the past tense or the present tense or the future tense of 6 different verbs. You need to pause it in a second and on your piece of paper fill in the rest of this chart. So for instance, what's the present tense of jumped? What's the future tense of jumped? What's the past tense of walk? What's the future tense of walk? So on and so forth. So pause it, take a minute, fill it in. When you're ready, continue the video and you'll see the answers. All right, you ready? Here you go. So jumped, we have the present tense is jump, futures will jump. Walked, walk, will walk. Run is one of those irregulars. You don't run, you ran. Ran, run, will run. Same thing with think. You don't thinked, you thought or you will think. Am is a to be verb. So it's not in the past tense, it's I was, in the future tense it's I will be. Do, did, will do. So if you got any of those wrong, you may want to back the video up a little bit and see what your error was. But if you're ready to continue, go ahead. Okay, these sentences should look familiar because they're from the last video we made about nouns. But we're not going to pick out the nouns today. We're going to find the verbs. Same 5 sentences. Each sentence has a verb. Can't have a sentence without one. So find the verbs. There might only be one. There might be more than one. Think about the actions. So when you're ready, pause the video. Write down on your paper the 5 verbs. Actually, more than 5. Sorry. All right, if you're ready, here we go. Here are your answers. Drove, Won, that's an action. You can win at something. Is, that's one of those times when is actually going to work kind of by itself. Put and close, both are actions. And are, actually it'd be are in. Nope, just are. Sorry, just are. Are. Okay. So that's it. If you're ready to go, you can come get the homework and work through these. If you have any questions, make sure you ask. Otherwise, good luck. And these are due not the following Monday, but the Monday after on November 18th.